Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening everyone. We are from group 5. We will be present the next material. It is about teaching listening. But before I gonna explain my material, let me introduce our group member first. The first is me, Fransisca. The second is Luluk Durriyatul M, and the last is Nurul Khumairoh. The first material, it is about listening comprehension in a pedagogical research. The background of listening comprehension comes from James Asser and Stephen Crescent. According to James, learners were given great quantity of language to listen to before they were encouraged to respond orally, while Stephen Crescent stated that learners need not say anything during a silent period until they feel ready to do so. Pedagogical research was focused on the role of listening comprehension in the late 1970s and show evidence of the importance of input or compressible input and intake. Later, pedagogical research showed the effect of contextual characteristics such as text, intellectual, task, listener, and process characteristics. From all statements, the research draw conclusion if listening is highly refined skill that requires learners attention to battery of strategies for extracting meaning from text. There are some questions about listening. The first is, what are listeners doing when they listen? The second is, what factor affect good listening? The third is, what are the characteristics of real life listening? The fourth is, what are the many things listeners listen for? And the fifth is, what are some principles of design listening technique? The sixth is, how can listening technique to interactive? And the last is, what are some common technique for teaching listening? And the next material, it is about an interactive model of listening comprehension. It's followed by Clark and Richard. The first is raw speech, hold an image of constituents of a stream of speech, clauses, intonation, phrases, and pattern. The second is type of speech, determine if it is conversation, broadcast speech, etc. Then infer function, here determine what the speaker wants to convey, requires to persuade, to inform. And the fourth is schemata, recall background information based on experience and context. And the last is literal meaning, schematic interpretation of utterance. Okay, that's all for me. The next presentation will be presented by my friend Luluk Durriyatul M.
Okay, my name is Luluk Durriyatul M. The sixth is attended meaning. The passive meaning with attended meaning, so means that when you hear the conversation, you should to match what you hear and what the speaker means. So it can involve the metaphor, idiom, contextual capacity, and psychological barrier. Okay, the seventh is memory. When you hear the information, you should to know where should you put the information. You will put the information in short-term memory or long-term memory. Okay, the eighth is important information. When you hear the conversation, you should to decide and you should to know the main idea or important information. Okay, type of language speaker. In language teaching is devoted to mastering English conversation in teaching listening comprehension. There are two types of language speaker. First is monologue and the second is dialogue. I think you have already familiar with monologue and dialogue. Monologue is a speaker using spoken language for any length of time. Or you can say that a conversation that is done by one person to discuss or talk something for any length of time, such as speech, a lecture, reading, new broadcasts, and many others. In monologue, the listener has to process a long speech without any distraction. In monologue, the speaker will continue to speak whether the listener understands or not. Okay, there are two monologues. The first is monologue plain and the second is monologue unplain. In monologue plain is the speaker has made the structure what will be plain and what going to be told is the same with the structure that has been plain. For example, speech and other pre-written material. Otherwise, monologue unplain is for lecturers such long story and it is easier to be understood by the listener than monologue plain. Okay, the second is dialogue. Dialogue is a conversation involving two or more speakers and it can be subdivided into those exchanges that promote social relationship is interpersonal. The purpose is to convey the proportional or factual information is transactional. Okay, in each case, they may have a good deal to share knowledge such as background information and schemata. Therefore, intimacy of interlocutor can make them to have more conversation about assumption, implication, and other hidden meaning. Okay, if you have a dialogue with unfamiliar participants, you must make references and meaning to be more explicit to ensure the effective understanding. If you don't make misunderstanding can easily occur. Okay, while the next explanation will be explained by Nurul.
Hello, I'm Nurul Khumairoh. I'm going to explain about what makes listening difficult. In English, there are several factors that you have to pay more attention since it is influenced the other factors in English, such as the process of speech and also the process of listening. If you are paying more attention in the factors, it will help you easier in the listening process. There are 8 characteristics of spoken language that we have to pay more attention so that in listening it will make us easier. The first is clustering. Clustering means like in English we have 8 part of speech. It is called a clustering. We have to make our students know what is 8 part of speech. Since if the students don't know about it, it will hard for them to learn about listening. And the next is redundancy. Redundancy means like something that like a repetition of words, slang, sentence, and it is make there are many benefits in redundancy, such as give more time, like about if we want to talk to someone, it will make us have more time to think about what will we say about it. For example, you can take a look in this dialogue. And in the last dialogue, there are many words that I must say. I must do that since it will help him to have more time to think about what he wants to talk. Like there are another example of redundancy. For example, it is like educate enough. Educate mean enough and enough mean educate. and the other is merge together. But merge mean together and together means merge. It is such as ways, but you but you can have a benefit from that redundancy. And the third is reduce forms. Reduce forms means like reduce forms means like minimize words. It can be from phonological, grammatical, or synthetic, and also it can be in pragmatic. For example, in the phonological, if you want to say did you eat yet, you can say that yet. It means there are minimized words in a minimized sentence. In the morphological, if you want to say I will, you can write it like I and double L. I'll. I will. The other the other example of reduced forms like you all become y'all and etc. And the next is performance variables. Performance variables usually the native speaker say something like uh and they are false or mistake to say something word. It is like a common mistake for the native speaker, but usually second language students feels like they are they are feeling bettering with that. For example, you can take a look in this dialogue, but I also to go with this, of course, if you are playing well, if so there are something like you can so there are like something like arise in this sentence. It is so common in the native speakers. They are also sometimes pronounced not pronounced. They are sometimes said the wrong grammatical. For example, like we arrived in a little town that there was no hotel anywhere. So it is a mistake grammatical, and it can be also like I don't get no respect. It is like a common mistake, and the students have to know, have to customize with it. And the next is like colloquial language. Colloquial language means like an informal words, phrase, and even slang. For example, like bamboo, bamboozly, it is mean like to deceive. Go bananas or go nuts, it is something like go insane or very angry. And want to, gotta, go to, y'all, you all, and be blue, it is to be sad. Usually in the daily life, the native speakers also said something like this. So the second language students have to know about the colloquial language so that they will not confuse when they hear this. The next is about rate of delivery. Usually the native speaker can speak too slow or speak too fast. And the students have to know about it. They have to they have like it is make it a habit to hear the native speaker voice. It can be in many speed, in many time, and in a few pause. The students need to be able to comprehend delivered at varying rates of speed and at times delivered with free pause. It is when you are hearing the native speaker, it is like not you are reading a book. If you are reading a book, you can read again if you are not. if you are not paying more attention with that. But if you are talk to native speakers, you cannot do something like that. If they are finished to talk, it means like you cannot like asking the native speaker to talk again. Like, sorry, pardon me. If you do this in many times, it will make the native speakers can get along with the conversation with you. So it's better for you to customize with any speed with any speeds in this when you listen to something. The next is stress, rhythm, and intonation. In English, we have to know the stress, rhythm, and intonation. The way speaker talk, if they are talk in the speed time, it will also influence the stress, rhythm, and intonation. Um, in English speech can be a terror for the students because it is like mouthfuls of syllables come spelling out. For example, like the president is interested in eliminating the embargo. Some of the students did not accustomed with these stress words. It will make them confused when they hear about it. So better for the students to learn about stress, rhythm, and intonation. And the last is about interaction. Interaction here means that if you are listening to someone, you have to be a good response also. In this book says that interaction will play a large role to listening comprehension. Conversation is especially subject to all the rules of interaction, negotiation, classification, attending signals, turn taking, and topic nomination, maintenance, and termination. So the students have to learn the listener or have to learn how to be a good listener and how to be a good response. When you are want to learn about listening, you have to know how to be a good listener and how to be a good response because the conversation it is about I think that the conversation is about taking and giving. If you want to be a good listener, you have to accustom it with hear. Always hear, trying to hear many times. And in the class, it is you can make your students to like the way nature of listening. It is like giving feedback, giving feedback, and all giving feedback from the speakers. I think it's enough for me. Thank you.
Okay, if you have any question, just write the question on WhatsApp group, and that's all from us. And last we say thank you.